They won't understand your silence, but they will feel it. And in 2025, that silence will be your loudest weapon. You see, when you start focusing only on yourself, people around you will feel uncomfortable. Not because you're doing something wrong, but because you're doing something different. You're no longer begging for attention. You're no longer chasing anyone's validation. You're done explaining yourself to people who never cared to understand you in the first place. This is the year you put your head down and rise. Quietly, powerfully, unapologetically, in a world that never stops talking, your silence becomes your power. Every day, people are constantly sharing, posting, venting, and performing. Everyone wants to be seen, heard, and validated. Social media has turned into a stage where people act out lives they don't even live. And in this chaotic, noisy environment, the person who chooses silence instantly stands out, not because they're doing something wrong, but because they're doing something rare. Silence is misunderstood. Most people think if you're not loud, you're not confident, if you're not explaining yourself, you must be hiding something. If you're not posting, updating, or reacting, then you must not be doing anything significant. But that's just noise talking. The truth is, silence is strength. It takes far more confidence to remain quiet in a world addicted to noise than to join in with the crowd, because silence requires security within yourself. It means you're no longer seeking external approval to feel validated. When you choose silence, you shift the power dynamic. People don't know what you're thinking, what your next move is, or where you stand. You become unpredictable, and that makes people uncomfortable. But it also makes you powerful, because silence is control. It means you're operating on your own terms. You're not emotionally reacting to what's thrown at you. You're not wasting your energy trying to correct people's misconceptions or defend your life decisions. You've risen above that level. You've chosen not to fight every battle because you've realized that the greatest battles are not won by noise, they're won by composure. Silence is not weakness. It's not passivity. It's not surrender. In fact, it's the opposite. Silence is presence without performance. It's movement without noise. It's strength without show. It's the storm behind the calm. And it's one of the most dangerous tools you can possess in 2025 because it keeps you in control when everyone else is reacting, panicking, and oversharing. Choosing silence allows you to listen deeply, not just to others, but to yourself. It creates a space where clarity grows. When you're not distracted by the world's noise, you begin to hear your own thoughts more clearly. You start noticing patterns, understanding your instincts, identifying what drains you and what fuels you. And with that clarity comes intention. You start moving with purpose, not impulse. You start responding instead of reacting. You stop living on autopilot and start living by design. And let's be clear, silence isn't about being passive in the face of injustice or sitting idle when you need to speak up. Silence, in the context of growth, is about choosing your words and actions wisely. It's about not engaging with energy that doesn't serve your elevation. It's about withdrawing from meaningless conversations and pointless drama. It's about saying, I'm not going to waste my time explaining myself to people committed to misunderstanding me. Because you know your energy is better spent building, creating, learning, and evolving. In 2025, silence is a tool of transformation. It's how you reclaim your power and focus. When you stop explaining, stop announcing, stop reacting, you regain control over your direction. You stop giving people the blueprint to your life. You stop allowing others to dilute your progress with their opinions and insecurities. Silence shields you from sabotage, envy, and unnecessary resistance. When people don't know what you're doing, they can't interfere. They can't manipulate or distract you. They're left guessing while you keep building. And let's not forget, silence is also a form of emotional maturity. When someone tries to provoke you and you don't react, you show them that your peace is not for sale. When people gossip and you stay out of it, you show them that your values are rooted in substance, not small talk. When people try to bring you down and you stay focused, you show them that your growth is not dependent on their approval. That's real power. The kind of power that doesn't shout, it simply stands tall, firm, and unbothered. The loudest person in the room is often the weakest. the one who needs to prove themselves constantly. But the person who says nothing, yet keeps showing results, that's who commands respect, because in the end, silence always wins. There comes a point in life when you realize that not everyone deserves access to your time, your energy, or your mind. You begin to understand that energy is currency, and how you spend it determines the quality of your life. Every conversation, every interaction, every thought exchange, it all costs something. And in a world full of distractions, manipulators, and energy vampires, protecting your energy becomes one of the most powerful things you can do. Because the truth is, you can't control how people act, but you can control what and who you allow into your space. So many people wake up exhausted, not because they're doing too much, but because they're carrying too many people who are doing too little. They say yes when they should say no. They engage in arguments that add no value. They overextend themselves trying to help people who don't even want to be helped. And in the process, they drain themselves dry. Their energy gets pulled in 1,000 different directions until there's nothing left for themselves. And that's exactly how you lose focus, momentum, and peace. There are people who will come into your life only to take. They will take your kindness, your attention, your empathy, your time, anything they can get their hands on. And if you don't have boundaries, they'll keep taking until you're left questioning your worth. These people don't want to grow with you. They want to keep you at their level. They're comfortable in chaos, so when you try to rise above, they'll create situations that pull you right back in. That's why protecting your energy is not just about self-care, it's about survival. You have to start treating your energy like your most valuable asset, because it is. Not everyone should have access to it. Just like you wouldn't let someone walk into your home uninvited and make a mess, you shouldn't allow people to enter your mind and heart with their negativity. You need to recognize when someone is not adding to your life and have the courage to let them go. Because every second you spend explaining yourself to someone who doesn't get it is a second taken away from building the life you deserve. When you protect your energy, you start moving differently. You become more intentional about who you talk to, where you go, and what you entertain. You stop arguing with people who are committed to misunderstanding you. You stop over-explaining your vision to people who don't have the capacity to see beyond their own limitations. You stop chasing validation from people who can't even validate themselves. You stop feeling guilty for choosing yourself. And it's not about becoming cold or distant. It's about choosing peace over chaos, growth over comfort, purpose over popularity. You stop being available to everything and everyone, and that's when your power multiplies. Because now your energy is being poured into things that actually matter. Your goals, your health, your mindset, your dreams. You're no longer wasting emotional resources on people who wouldn't even lift a finger for you. There are people who only reach out when they need something. People who only show support when it benefits them. People who clap for you publicly, but secretly compete with you behind closed doors. These are the ones who drain your spirit the most, because their energy is not aligned with yours. And the longer you entertain them, the longer you delay your own growth. You owe it to yourself to create distance. You owe it to your future to surround yourself with people who push you forward, not pull you down. Protecting your energy means being okay with being misunderstood. It means walking away without explanation. It means declining invites to protect your peace. It means saying no and not feeling guilty about it. It means being selective with your conversations, because not every discussion deserves your input. It means choosing silence when words would only feed the chaos. It means disconnecting from people who don't inspire, uplift, or support the version of you that you're becoming. This year, make a decision to be unavailable to negativity. Make yourself hard to reach for those who only call when they want something. Stop engaging with people who drain your joy, your focus, and your passion. You don't need to argue. You don't need to prove anything. You just need to protect what's sacred. Your peace, your energy, your mind. That's how you grow. That's how you evolve. That's how you rise. There's a quiet kind of power that comes when you stop announcing your every move and start letting your results speak for themselves. In a time when people feel the need to constantly share their plans, dreams, and progress, the one who chooses to move in silence becomes unstoppable. You don't need to broadcast your goals to validate their importance. You don't need to tell the world what you're about to do just to prove that you're doing something meaningful. What you need is to focus on execution, not explanation. The more you talk about your plans, the more pressure you create to live up to the expectations others place on you. When people know what you're working on, they start watching, judging, waiting to see if you'll succeed or fail. Some will secretly hope you fall short just so they feel better about their own inaction. That's why moving in silence protects your process. It gives you room to make mistakes, learn, adapt, and grow without external interference. It allows you to build in peace, away from distractions, opinions, and unnecessary competition. There's a reason why the most successful people often operate quietly. They're not hiding, they're focused. They're not being secretive, they're being strategic. They understand that talking doesn't build things, work does. Talking creates noise, but action creates legacy. When you make your moves in silence, you conserve energy. You don't waste time convincing others. You don't pause your progress to explain yourself to people who don't even understand your vision. You simply stay locked in and let your work do all the talking. Announcing your goals might give you a short-term boost in motivation, but it can also create a false sense of accomplishment. Talking about what you're going to do tricks the brain into feeling like you've already done it. And that feeling can be dangerous because it reduces your urgency to actually follow through. That's why so many people post their intentions online, get the dopamine hit from likes and comments, and then never follow through. They got the validation they were looking for and lost the hunger to execute. Letting your results speak builds real respect. People can argue with your words, but they can't argue with your progress. Results are undeniable. They are proof that you stayed consistent, that you worked in silence, that you didn't fold under pressure, that you didn't need an audience to stay disciplined. Your success becomes the loudest statement you'll ever make, and you won't have to say a single word. When you don't broadcast your moves, people are left to guess. And that gives you the advantage. They don't know your next step. They don't know how far along you are. They don't know what you're building until it's too late to stop you. That mystery creates momentum. It gives you leverage because while others are busy performing and seeking validation, you're busy becoming. You're laying brick after brick, building something real, something unshakable. People often feel the need to prove themselves because they fear being overlooked. But being underestimated is not a disadvantage. It's a gift. It gives you the chance to work without pressure, to grow without scrutiny, to prepare without being watched. It allows you to stay grounded and humble while sharpening your skills behind the scenes. And when you finally arrive, when the results of your hard work are revealed, it catches people off guard. That shock, that sudden realization that you've been leveling up in silence is far more powerful than any announcement ever could be in this journey. Discipline matters more than declarations. Consistency matters more than conversations. And execution matters more than explanation. Your job isn't to convince people that you're doing something great. It's to do something great. That means waking up every day and putting in the work, whether or not anyone's watching. It means committing to the grind without needing applause. It means trusting that your time will come. And when it does, your results will speak so loudly that no one will be able to ignore them. You don't need to go live, post updates, or shout your progress from the rooftops. What you need is to go deep within yourself and ask, am I doing this for me or for them? Because when you shift your focus from being seen to being successful, everything changes. You become less interested in praise and more interested in purpose. You become less concerned with recognition and more obsessed with results. You stop chasing attention and start building something worth noticing, and the world will eventually notice, not because you asked them to, but because your results demanded it. Growth demands isolation. Not the kind of isolation that leaves you feeling alone and broken, but the kind that leads you inward, forcing you to face your truth without distractions. There's something powerful that happens when you distance yourself from the noise of the world. You begin to hear your own voice. You start to understand what really drives you, what you've been tolerating, and what needs to change. In that solitude, transformation begins. That's where you meet the version of yourself that's been buried under other people's expectations, opinions, and energy. When you choose isolation not as an escape, but as a strategy, you set yourself apart in ways that comfort and company could never offer. When you're constantly surrounded by others, their energy, their words, and their beliefs start influencing you, sometimes without you even noticing. You pick up their fears, their doubts, their limitations. You find yourself questioning your decisions because you're trying to keep everyone comfortable, accepted, and aligned. But in doing so, you sacrifice your authenticity. That's why isolation is necessary. It strips away everything that isn't yours. It's a detox for your soul. It teaches you to rely on yourself, to validate yourself, and to build your identity from the inside out. Isolation is where you learn discipline. When there's no one around to motivate you, you either create your own fire or you stay cold. You either build structure or you crumble into chaos. That's the power of being alone. You discover what you're really made of. You begin to see how much of your potential is wasted trying to keep up with people who aren't even going in the same direction. The moment you choose to separate yourself from distractions, you open the door to focus, clarity, and elevation. You stop scattering your energy and start directing it. You stop reacting to life and start shaping it. People fear isolation because they associate it with loneliness. But there's a difference. Loneliness is a state of mind. Isolation is a conscious decision. You isolate because you're building, because you're tired of being stuck in loops, because you've seen what happens when you keep showing up for people who wouldn't do the same for you, because you're ready to break cycles, not keep them alive. Growth requires space, it requires silence, it requires discomfort, it requires removing yourself from anything that keeps you average. When you isolate yourself, you begin to see who's really for you and who was just for what you offered them. People don't like it when you go quiet. They get uncomfortable when you stop showing up, stop entertaining, stop explaining. That's because your silence forces them to reflect, and most people aren't ready to do that. But that's not your problem. Your responsibility is to protect your peace and your growth at all costs. That might mean stepping away from familiar people, stepping out of routines that no longer serve you, and spending more time with your thoughts than with opinions. During isolation, you'll face yourself. All the truths you've been avoiding, all the habits you've been justifying, all the dreams you've been postponing, they'll rise to the surface. And that can be uncomfortable, even painful. But that's where growth begins. You can't evolve if you're unwilling to confront yourself. You can't become powerful if you're unwilling to sit with your weaknesses. You can't rise if you keep running from the parts of you that still need healing. Isolation creates the space for that inner work. It's not glamorous, but it's necessary. This season of your life isn't about popularity or being constantly surrounded by people. It's about becoming so deeply connected with who you are and where you're headed that you no longer need the noise to feel valid. It's about pulling back, not because you're losing, but because you're preparing, because you're growing, because you finally understand that not everyone can go where you're going. Some paths require silence. Some chapters require solitude. Some breakthroughs require isolation. So if you're in a place where you feel disconnected from the world, don't rush to fill that void. Sit in it, learn from it, use it, let it refine you, strengthen you, and reveal what you were too distracted to notice before. Let it strip you down to your core and rebuild you into something greater. Because when you finally step back into the world, you won't be the same. You'll be sharper, wiser, more focused, and the world will feel it even if you never say a word. The moment you stop reacting to everything and everyone around you is the moment you begin to take back control of your life. In a world full of noise, conflict, and emotional triggers, the ability to remain calm and composed is a rare form of strength. People will test you, situations will provoke you, and challenges will try to shake your foundation. But you must understand that your peace is not a public playground. It's a private garden that must be protected at all costs. Emotional discipline is not about becoming numb. It's about becoming wise. It's about understanding that not everything deserves your energy, your words, or your emotional investment. When you react impulsively, you give power to everything outside of you. Someone says something offensive and you erupt. Something doesn't go your way and you spiral. A person rejects you and your self-worth crumbles. That is not power. That is bondage. To be truly free, you must learn to pause. Breathe, step back and observe, because in that pause is where you reclaim your power. It's where you decide whether this situation is worth your energy or if it's just another test meant to distract you from your purpose. The strongest people are not those who dominate every room with their voice, but those who can walk away without saying a word and still command respect. People often think silence is weakness, that walking away from conflict means you've lost. But in reality, it's a form of emotional mastery. You don't have to prove anything to anyone. You don't need to fight every battle that invites you in. Some things aren't worth your breath. Some people are committed to misunderstanding you. They don't want resolution. They want reaction, because your reaction gives them validation, attention, control. But when you remain calm, when you stay still, when you offer silence instead of outrage, they lose their grip on you. Your lack of reaction is your power. Your stillness becomes your shield. The world will try to convince you that being loud equals being strong, that being aggressive means being assertive. But emotional control isn't about aggression. It's about alignment. It's about knowing yourself so well that nothing external can shake your internal foundation. That kind of control makes you unpredictable, and unpredictability is intimidating. When people can't control your emotions, they start to respect your presence. They realize they can't manipulate you. They can't push your buttons. You've removed the control panel from their hands and placed it firmly in your own. Mastering your emotions doesn't mean you don't feel. It means you no longer allow those feelings to govern your actions. You acknowledge them, process them, and then respond from a place of clarity, not chaos. This self-regulation allows you to move with purpose, not pressure. You become unbothered by pettiness, unaffected by drama, and uninterested in meaningless conflict. Your peace becomes your priority, and anything that threatens it is met with distance, not drama. Most people are reactive because they haven't taken the time to know themselves. They don't understand their triggers. They don't recognize their patterns. So they walk around like emotional landmines, waiting for someone to step too close. But the person who studies themselves, who reflects, who practices self-awareness, becomes a fortress. They don't explode. They evaluate. They don't lash out. They learn, and in that learning, they grow into someone who cannot be shaken by temporary chaos. This emotional control also builds credibility. People begin to see you as dependable, composed, grounded. In a world full of instability, your ability to remain steady becomes a magnet. Opportunities come to those who can stay centered under pressure. Leadership belongs to those who don't crumble in the storm. Influence flows to those who can respond with wisdom instead of reacting with emotion. So every time you feel the urge to explode, to argue, to prove, remember that silence is not surrender, it is strategy. You will be tested. There will be people who try to pull you back into old habits, people who provoke you just to see if they still have access to your emotions. But your job is to protect your energy by not engaging. Not everything deserves a response. Not everyone deserves access to your emotions. The more you practice restraint, the more powerful you become. Because power isn't loud. Power is controlled. Power is choosing peace when chaos is offered. Power is knowing your worth so deeply that you don't need to react to be seen, heard, or respected. The greatest shift you can make in 2025 is turning your full focus inward, putting all of your energy into improving, evolving, and mastering yourself. When you stop obsessing over how others see you, what others think about you, and how you measure up to the noise outside of you, you start to understand that your greatest competition has always been the person in the mirror. So many people waste their time trying to impress, compare, or outshine someone else, thinking that external validation will finally make them feel fulfilled. But the truth is, the only validation that matters is the one that comes from knowing you're doing better than you did yesterday. You grow the moment you decide to become your own standard. It's easy to lose yourself in other people's expectations. You scroll through social media and see curated lives, filtered success, and fabricated confidence. You start questioning your own progress. You wonder if you're behind, if you're missing out, if you're doing something wrong. But what you're really doing is abandoning your own journey to chase someone else's illusion. When your eyes are constantly on someone else's path, your feet stop moving on your own. That's why it's critical to shift your attention back to yourself. You have no idea what battles other people are fighting behind closed doors. You don't know what sacrifices they've made or what they've lost to get where they are. Comparing your chapter 2 to their chapter 20 will only leave you discouraged and distracted. Growth doesn't happen when you're looking outward. It happens when you look within. It happens when you become brutally honest with yourself about your habits, your mindset, your attitude, and your actions. Are you putting in the work when no one's watching? Are you consistent with the things you promised yourself? Are you using your time wisely or wasting it chasing distractions that feed your ego but starve your soul? These are the questions that matter. These are the questions that elevate you. And only you can answer them. Focusing on yourself doesn't mean you're selfish. It means you're serious. It means you've realized that if you don't build your life, someone else will hand you a blueprint for theirs. It means you've accepted that no one is coming to save you, motivate you, or carry you to your goals. It means you've stopped waiting for the right moment and started creating your own. In this season, you have to become obsessed with your own growth. You have to want it more than attention, more than approval, more than applause. You have to want to evolve so badly that it no longer matters who's watching or who's clapping. Because you're no longer performing, you're transforming. When you focus only on yourself, you begin to recognize your own patterns. You see where you sabotage your progress, where you give up too early, where you let fear dictate your decisions. That self-awareness is the key to breaking cycles. You can't fix what you won't face. But once you start noticing, you start changing, you build better routines, you strengthen your discipline, you become more intentional with your energy. You no longer allow temporary emotions to create permanent setbacks. You don't need a new year or a new month. You just need a new mindset. This mindset shift will cost you. It will cost you comfort. It will cost you relationships that were built on distraction rather than direction. It will cost you old habits that kept you numb, lazy, or small. But what you gain is so much greater. You gain peace. You gain clarity. You gain the ability to walk into any room knowing that you belong there, not because someone told you, but because you put in the work to become that version of yourself. You don't chase anymore. You attract. You don't compete, you create. You don't seek approval, you operate in alignment. In 2025, if you truly want to change your life, forget about proving yourself to anyone else. Make your progress personal. Make your success sacred. Make your goals so deeply connected to your purpose that nothing outside of you can pull you off track. Wake up every day with the intention to be better, not for the world, not for your followers, not even for your family, for you. Because when you become your own priority, when you become your own motivation, You become the outside world will eventually take notice, but by then you won't even need it. You'll be too focused on the next level to care about the applause from the last one. There is something powerful about moving in silence. When you keep your plans, your progress, and your pain to yourself, you protect your energy from outside interference. In a world where everyone is eager to announce their every move, to share every detail of their life for approval and attention, silence becomes your shield, not because you're hiding, but because you're focused. When you talk too much about what you're going to do, you invite doubt, envy, and unnecessary opinions. People start projecting their fears onto your goals. They start questioning your path. And if you're not careful, you begin to internalize that noise. That's why keeping quiet is not weakness, it's wisdom. Your silence is sacred. It gives you room to grow without judgment. It gives you space to make mistakes without a spotlight. It gives you freedom to change your mind, adjust your direction, and evolve privately. When no one knows what you're building, they can't sabotage it. They can't compare it. They can't compete with it. You remove the need to explain, to defend, to justify. You give yourself permission to focus completely on the process instead of performing for the world. The more you share, the more you scatter your power. The more you speak prematurely, the more vulnerable your vision becomes. But when you guard your dreams like treasure, they grow stronger in the dark. There's a reason seeds are planted underground, away from sight. Growth starts in silence. Strength is built in solitude. Confidence is forged in private victories long before the public sees anything. The best version of you is developed in moments no one claps for. The real work doesn't need an audience. It needs your attention, your consistency, your commitment. You don't have to broadcast your hustle. Let your results speak for you. Let your peace speak for you. Let your presence speak louder than your words ever could. That kind of power is undeniable. That kind of strength can't be faked. People often seek validation because they doubt themselves. They need others to affirm their choices to feel secure. But the more you grow, the less you need that approval. You start to understand that not everyone deserves access to your journey. Some people aren't capable of supporting you because your growth threatens their comfort. Your silence, your distance, your elevation, it exposes them. And that exposure makes them uncomfortable. They'd rather keep you talking than see you winning. They'd rather distract you with compliments or criticism than let you build in peace. That's why you must stay quiet, not to be mysterious, but to be unshakable. There's a certain calm that comes when you no longer need to prove anything. You stop rushing to announce your moves. You stop reacting to everything thrown your way. You stop explaining yourself to people who are committed to misunderstanding you. You stop giving access to those who only show up when they want something from you. You protect your focus like it's your lifeline, because it is. When you're focused, nothing can stop you. Not opinions, not delays, not even failure, because you're no longer fueled by applause, you're driven by purpose. That quiet determination is what separates those who talk from those who transform. The silence also helps you hear yourself better. When you're not constantly sharing, you start listening to your instincts, to your intuition, to your higher self. You make clearer decisions. You notice patterns. You catch red flags early. You learn what drains you and what drives you. That level of awareness only comes when you stop entertaining the outside world long enough to tune into your own. You become grounded, you become intentional, and most importantly, you become untouchable. Because no one can shake a person who is deeply rooted in their purpose. Don't let the noise of the world distract you from the greatness being developed in your silence. Every time you're tempted to speak too soon, remind yourself that your energy is better spent doing the work, that your goals are too important to be diluted by other people's input, that your story will be far more powerful when it's told through actions, not announcements. Let your silence be your strategy, your strength, and your shield. Move quietly and let the impact of your work echo louder than any words ever could. The moment you detach from needing recognition, approval, or validation from others, you begin to operate from a place of unshakable inner strength. Most people live their lives in a constant loop of performance, performing for love, for attention, for respect, for inclusion. They bend who they are just to fit into someone else's version of who they should be. They silence their voice to keep the peace. They shrink their light so others feel comfortable, and they wait endlessly for someone to finally tell them they're enough. But the truth is, no amount of external validation can ever fill the void that exists when you haven't accepted yourself. You could receive applause from the whole world and still feel empty inside if you don't approve of who you've become. That's why this journey isn't about proving anything to anyone. It's about becoming someone you're proud to live with every single day. Operating in silence while focusing on yourself trains you to find fulfillment in the process rather than the praise. It teaches you to love the work, not the reward. And when you get to that place, you stop depending on anyone else to tell you your worth. You stop needing to be seen to know you're valuable. You stop chasing attention because attention is fleeting, but purpose is permanent. When you're driven by purpose, you keep going even when no one's watching. You show up even when you're unrecognized. You do the work because it aligns with who you are, not because someone else claps for it. This kind of detachment doesn't make you cold. It makes you powerful. It allows you to move without pressure. You're not constantly looking over your shoulder, comparing your pace to someone else's. You're not paralyzed by fear of judgment or failure. You're free to grow, free to evolve, and free to make bold choices that are true to you. Most people never reach their potential because they're too busy trying to please others. But you weren't created to be liked. You were created to be real. And being real sometimes means walking alone, misunderstood, even criticized. But the peace that comes from being authentic is far more valuable than the comfort of being accepted for a version of you that isn't even real. When you detach from needing validation, something incredible happens. You begin to attract the right things without chasing. The right people start noticing your energy, not because you were loud, but because your silence carried weight. The right opportunities find you, not because you begged for them, but because your consistent work made you undeniable. You don't chase anything, you align with it. You no longer compromise your boundaries to fit into someone's box. You build your own lane, you define your own success, and you respect yourself enough to stay focused on what matters, even when it doesn't get applause. There will always be people who don't see your value, people who overlook you, underestimate you, even ignore you. Let them. Their opinion has no power unless you give it permission. The moment you stop needing them to see you is the moment you become truly visible, because now you're not living for them, you're living for something greater. You don't shrink in the face of rejection because rejection no longer wounds you, it redirects you. You don't beg to be chosen because you've already chosen yourself. And when you choose yourself fully, unapologetically, the world starts to reflect that confidence back to you in ways you couldn't have imagined. Not needing validation doesn't mean you don't appreciate support. It just means you don't rely on it to function. You've become so connected to your vision, so focused on your mission, that anything extra is just a bonus, not a necessity. You've learned to clap for yourself. You've learned to cheer yourself on in the dark when no one else showed up. And in doing so, you've cultivated a kind of resilience that can't be broken by silence or disapproval. You know who you are, you know why you're doing what you're doing, and that's more than enough. When you reach this point, you don't move from desperation, you move from alignment. You don't seek permission, you take action. You don't wait for the world to validate your worth, you walk in it. And every step you take becomes a declaration that you are not here to impress, perform, or prove. You're here to live, to grow, to fulfill your purpose boldly, even if no one ever claps. Because the loudest applause is the one that echoes within your own soul when you know you stayed true to who you are. One of the most transformative decisions you can make in your life is to stop seeking approval from others and instead cultivate a deep and unwavering self-trust. Approval is like a drug. It gives you a temporary high, a fleeting moment of validation that quickly fades, leaving you craving more. When your sense of self-worth depends on external approval, you hand over the keys to your happiness to someone else's opinion. This leaves you vulnerable, anxious, and always chasing something outside your control. But when you build self-trust, you reclaim your power. You become the authority of your own life. You no longer need anyone else's permission to be yourself or pursue your dreams. Trusting yourself means believing in your intuition, your decisions, and your ability to handle whatever life throws at you. It means you accept that you are not perfect and will make mistakes, but that those mistakes don't define you or derail you. You understand that growth is a process, and every step forward, even the ones that feel like setbacks, is part of your journey. When you trust yourself, you create an inner foundation so solid that external opinions, criticism, or rejection bounce off without shaking your core. You become anchored in your values and vision, which guide you through uncertainty and challenge. The process of building self-trust requires patience and practice. It starts with small promises to yourself, showing up consistently, following through on commitments, and honoring your own boundaries. When you keep your word to yourself, no matter how small the action, you reinforce the message that you are reliable and worthy of your own respect. Over time, these small victories build momentum and deepen your confidence. You begin to see that you can count on yourself, even when the world is unpredictable. This consistency creates a powerful ripple effect. As your self-trust grows, so does your resilience and your capacity to face fears without hesitation. Self-trust also means learning to silence the inner critic and negative self-talk. Everyone has an internal dialogue, but most people allow that voice to sabotage their progress with doubt, fear, and judgment. Building self-trust means training yourself to listen instead to a voice of encouragement and belief. It means being kind to yourself in moments of failure and reminding yourself that you are doing your best. This shift in internal communication changes everything. You stop second-guessing every choice and start making decisions with clarity and conviction. You learn to honor your feelings without letting them control you, and you develop a healthy balance between confidence and humility. When you trust yourself, you stop seeking approval from others because you no longer need their validation to feel secure. This is a radical form of freedom. You can speak your truth without fear of rejection. You can set boundaries without guilt. You can pursue your goals without hesitation. This freedom allows you to live authentically and unapologetically. You become magnetic to the right people and opportunities because you are not scattered by the need to please everyone. Your energy is focused and clear, and people sense your integrity and strength. Building self-trust also equips you to handle criticism and rejection with grace. When you depend on others' approval, criticism feels like a personal attack and rejection like a confirmation of your worst fears. But when you trust yourself, you see criticism as feedback, an opportunity to learn and improve rather than a verdict on your worth. You understand that rejection is not a reflection of your value, but a redirection towards something better aligned with your purpose. This mindset shifts how you respond to challenges. You become curious instead of defensive, resilient instead of defeated. Another important aspect of self-trust is embracing your uniqueness. Many people try to fit in, conform, or hide parts of themselves because they fear judgment or exclusion. But trusting yourself means celebrating what makes you different. It means knowing that your perspective, your experiences, and your voice are valuable simply because they are yours. When you stop trying to be what others expect and start being who you truly are, you tap into a wellspring of creativity, passion, and fulfillment that no one else can replicate. This journey is not always easy. You will face moments of doubt and temptation to seek reassurance from others. You will encounter people who don't support your growth or try to pull you back into old patterns. But the more you practice self-trust, the stronger your foundation becomes and the less you are affected by external chaos. You learn to stand firm in your convictions and move forward with courage even when the path is unclear. Learning to trust yourself is about reclaiming your power. It's about becoming the leader of your own life instead of a follower of other people's opinions. It's about realizing that you are enough exactly as you are, and that you have everything within you to create the life you desire. When you trust yourself fully, you no longer need permission, validation, or approval. You simply need belief, commitment, and the willingness to keep moving forward. That is the kind of strength that changes everything. The path to true personal power begins with the courage to set clear boundaries and to protect your energy fiercely. Boundaries are not walls meant to isolate you. They are lines drawn to define what is acceptable and what is not in your life. They serve as a declaration of self-respect, a statement that your time, energy, and well-being are valuable and not to be taken lightly. Without boundaries, you become vulnerable to people's demands, distractions, and negative influences that drain your focus and derail your progress. In a world filled with constant noise, opinions, and expectations, setting boundaries is an act of self-love and self-preservation that allows you to stay centered on what truly matters. When you decide to focus only on yourself and stay silent, boundaries become your strongest ally. Saying no to others' requests that don't align with your goals or values is not selfish. It's necessary. Every time you say yes to something that doesn't serve you, you say no to your own growth. Boundaries help you manage your time and energy, ensuring that you invest them wisely in your dreams, health, and happiness. They prevent burnout and resentment by making sure you don't overextend yourself to please people who may never appreciate your efforts. Instead, you protect your inner world so that your outer world can flourish. Many people struggle with boundaries because they fear rejection, confrontation, or disappointment. They worry that saying no will make them unpopular or unloved. But the truth is, boundaries create clarity and respect in relationships. When you clearly communicate what you will and will not tolerate, you invite others to understand you better. You teach them how to treat you. And while some may choose to walk away, those who stay are the ones truly worthy of your energy. Boundaries filter out toxic influences and create space for positive, supportive connections that fuel your growth. Setting boundaries also means guarding your mental and emotional space. Not everyone deserves access to your thoughts, feelings, or struggles. Oversharing can dilute your power and invite unnecessary drama or judgment. When you stay silent about your plans, vulnerabilities, or challenges, you keep control over your narrative. You choose when, how, and with whom to share your story. This selective sharing protects you from being misunderstood, exploited, or discouraged. It allows you to process your journey internally and emerge stronger before exposing yourself to external opinions. Energy is contagious, and boundaries protect your energy from being drained by negative or distracting forces. Whether it's toxic people, social media noise, or constant interruptions, these drains chip away at your focus and motivation. When you set boundaries around your time and attention, you create an environment conducive to deep work and reflection. You reclaim your power by deciding what deserves your focus and what doesn't. This intentionality cultivates productivity and creativity, allowing you to make consistent progress toward your goals without being pulled off course. Learning to enforce boundaries requires practice and confidence. At first, it might feel uncomfortable or even selfish because it challenges old patterns of people-pleasing or avoidance of conflict. But every time you stand firm in your limits, you reinforce your self-worth and teach others to respect you. You build inner strength that translates into greater clarity, peace, and control over your life. Boundaries are not permanent walls, but flexible guidelines that evolve as you grow. They empower you to say yes to yourself, even when the world says no. Another critical aspect of boundaries is protecting your time. Time is the most precious resource you have, and once lost, it cannot be regained. When you focus only on yourself, you guard your schedule fiercely. You prioritize your goals, health, and rest over distractions and obligations that don't align with your purpose. You understand that every minute spent on meaningless pursuits is a minute stolen from your dreams. This mindset shifts how you interact with others. You become more selective with invitations, conversations, and commitments. You don't apologize for valuing your time because you recognize that honoring it is essential for your success and well-being. Boundaries also help you cultivate emotional resilience. When you control who has access to your feelings, you reduce emotional overwhelm and confusion. You become less reactive to others' opinions, judgments, or negativity. You develop a calm, centered state that is not easily disturbed by external chaos. This emotional armor allows you to focus on your growth without being pulled into drama or distractions. It also helps you recover quickly from setbacks because your peace doesn't depend on external validation or approval. In essence, boundaries are the foundation of self-mastery. They create a safe container for your energy, time, and emotions. They protect your focus and allow you to invest deeply in your own development. They help you avoid unnecessary conflicts and distractions that come from trying to please everyone or live up to unrealistic expectations. When you set and maintain boundaries, you take full responsibility for your well-being and success. You become the gatekeeper of your life, choosing what enters and what stays out. This power is transformative because it shifts you from being reactive to proactive, from being influenced by others to leading yourself with intention. The practice of boundary setting is not about isolating yourself or shutting others out. It's about creating healthy relationships with yourself and those around you. It's about valuing your worth enough to protect your space and your goals. It's about cultivating an environment where your best self can thrive without interference or distraction. And it's about understanding that your focus and silence are not signs of weakness, but marks of strength, discipline, and clarity. When you master boundaries, you master your life. One of the most profound realizations you can come to in your personal journey is that your energy is your most valuable asset. How you spend it, who you share it with, and what you allow into your space will directly influence your growth, happiness, and success. In a world filled with constant demands, distractions, and drains on your attention, learning to protect and prioritize your energy is crucial. It's not just about being busy or productive. It's about being intentional with your life force and guarding it fiercely against anything or anyone that diminishes your power. When you decide to focus only on yourself and stay silent in the year 2025, you are essentially choosing to become the steward of your own energy. You're saying no to the chaos and noise that typically pull you in countless directions, and yes to a disciplined and mindful approach to your inner world. This choice means you are no longer willing to expend energy on people who do not uplift or support you, on arguments that lead nowhere, or on distractions that keep you stuck in place. Instead, you conserve your strength for what truly matters: your dreams, your growth, and your peace. Protecting your energy begins with awareness. You need to become deeply conscious of what depletes you and what nourishes you. This requires honest reflection and sometimes difficult decisions. You might realize certain relationships, habits, or environments are draining you more than you thought. They may be toxic friends who gossip and complain, negative media that feeds your anxiety, or constant multitasking that leaves you exhausted and unfocused. Once you identify these energy thieves, you can begin to set boundaries and create distance where necessary. This process can be uncomfortable at first because it may involve change and confrontation, but it is essential for your well-being. Silence plays a powerful role in protecting your energy. When you choose to stay silent, you're not hiding or withdrawing out of fear, you're conserving your power. Silence allows you to listen to your inner voice without external noise interfering. It gives your mind the space to process, reflect, and realign. In a culture that values constant communication and social media presence, silence is a radical act of self-care and control. It prevents you from getting pulled into unnecessary conflicts, gossip, or drama that drain your energy. Instead, silence helps you maintain clarity and focus on what really matters. Energy protection also means being selective about who you share your time and thoughts with. Not everyone deserves access to your inner world. Sharing your plans, vulnerabilities, or challenges indiscriminately can open the door to misunderstanding, judgment, or discouragement. By staying silent about certain things, you protect your energy from being fragmented or exploited. This selective sharing is not about secrecy, but about wisdom. Knowing when, how, and with whom to reveal parts of yourself. It's about maintaining control over your narrative and preserving your strength for the battles that truly deserve your attention. Another important aspect of protecting your energy is cultivating positive, supportive relationships. Surrounding yourself with people who uplift, inspire, and believe in you replenishes your energy rather than drains it. These relationships act as fuel for your journey, providing encouragement and constructive feedback when needed. When you focus on yourself and stay silent, you create space for these healthy connections to grow. You are less distracted by drama or negativity and more open to genuine, meaningful interactions that align with your values and goals. Protecting your energy also requires cultivating daily habits that recharge you physically, mentally, and emotionally. This could mean prioritizing rest and sleep, engaging in physical exercise, practicing mindfulness or meditation, or spending time in nature. These practices build your resilience and equip you to handle stress without becoming overwhelmed. When your energy reserves are full, you have the strength to face challenges, make better decisions, and maintain your focus on your personal mission. In addition to external factors, protecting your energy involves managing your internal dialogue. Negative self-talk, doubt, and fear are internal energy drains that can sabotage your progress. Learning to cultivate a positive mindset and affirm your worth replenishes your internal energy and fuels your motivation. When you are kind to yourself and practice self-compassion, you create a positive feedback loop that reinforces your commitment to growth and silence in the face of distraction. Energy is also influenced by your environment. Creating a physical space that supports your focus and calm can have a profound effect on your energy levels. A clutter-free, organized, and inspiring environment reduces stress and mental fatigue, allowing you to channel your energy more efficiently. When you focus only on yourself, you naturally become more intentional about your surroundings, eliminating chaos and cultivating peace. Protecting your energy is a continuous practice, not a one-time decision. It requires vigilance and self-awareness to notice when you're slipping back into old patterns of overgiving, oversharing, or engaging in energy-draining behaviors. It demands the courage to say no, to walk away, and to reclaim your power repeatedly. But each time you do, you strengthen your ability to maintain your focus and silence, creating momentum that propels you forward. In the end, when you guard your energy fiercely, you create a life that reflects your highest priorities and deepest values. You become a force of nature, unstoppable and unshakable. Your energy becomes a magnet that draws opportunities, people, and experiences aligned with your purpose. And by choosing to focus only on yourself and stay silent in 2025, you are not just protecting your energy, you are amplifying it, channeling it, and using it to build the life you truly deserve.